Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural RETCON Office Summit. We're so glad to have everyone here digitally. My name is Patrika Elise, and I'll be your MC for the next hour of the show. We've got some incredible content planned for you today. I just have a few key items to run through before we get started. This conference, as you've probably noticed, runs on the SwapCard event platform. Everything you need to have an amazing summit experience can be found right here. First, let's talk about networking. In order to find your connection request, meeting request, and conversations with other attendees, simply click on the My Event button, which you can find here. By clicking into this feature, you'll be able to view your networking conversations and connection requests, and see your meetings and meeting requests. Now, let's talk about the technology exhibits. The RETCON Office Summit features incredible technology products and services that were hand-selected by the RETCON team. Each one of these companies has the ability to help you push your company forward. Take a second to click around the virtual booths and explore what they have to offer. Inside, you can find more information about each company, as well as helpful white papers and other downloadables. And that's it. We think you'll find SwapCard very intuitive and easy to use. Now that you're familiar with the SwapCard platform and how to use it, let the RETCON Office Summit begin. I'll now welcome James Sheeran, the producer of RETCON, to introduce today's agenda and the first speaker.
Thank you, Patrika, and welcome everyone to our inaugural RETCON Office Summit. As Patrika mentioned, I'm James Sheeran, the producer of RETCON. I'm excited to have you join us and hope you'll find value over the next 2 days. Here at RETCON, we strive to create the most successful peer-to-peer learning environment around real estate technology and its applications within the industry. As tech advances at an exponential rate, we believe it to be of critical importance to create forums for knowledge sharing so that all organizations can responsibly embrace and benefit from these developments. We're excited to have you as a vital part of this mission. As you watch talks today, remember that in many cases, the speakers themselves will be around to answer questions that you have in real time. If you'd like to ask a question, use the chat box feature on the side of the page. Now, let me welcome our first speaker today. Mr. Charles Chuck Schreiber is the CEO of KBS. I'm sure you all know KBS as a nationally recognized real estate investment advisory firm, ranked by the National Real Estate Investor among the top office owners globally. KBS operates numerous institutional and sovereign wealth funds, as well as 3 non-traded REITs. Chuck directs all facets of the company's business activities and is a member of the KBS Investment Committee, which evaluates and authorizes new investment opportunities for the firm. He's also responsible for investor relationships. Chuck formed KBS in 1992 and has grown it into the impressive firm we all know today. He is currently an executive board member for the USC Lusk Center for Real Estate at the Marshall School of Business and School of Public Policy, Planning and Development. Mr. Schreiber is also a member of the executive committee for the Public Non-Listed REIT Council of the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trusts and is a member of the National Council of Real Estate Investment Fiduciaries. Chuck, welcome to RETCON Office. We're excited to have you join us.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you on Zoom.
Yes. Hopefully in person very soon. Fingers crossed here.
Well, we're working in the office, so you're welcome in Newport Beach or Washington, D.C., wherever our offices are.
You don't need to say that twice. I will be out to Orange County in a minute. So to start off, I'd love to jump in, big picture. We've, of course, had quite the year in this pandemic. but it's led to some incredible innovations as well, especially as it pertains to technology. Chuck, what have you seen over the past year?
Well, KBS and our workforce and our investments have obviously been greatly impacted by the pandemic. And really over the last 14 months, we've seen changes that we needed to respond on a monthly basis, if not a weekly basis, to really accommodate our employees, but even as important, the employees of our tenants. And so it's been a very, very busy, intense period of time, and we're just thrilled with the performance and what we've been able to realize over the last 14 months.
Yeah, that's incredible. And as it pertains to technology, what role has that played in your pivot internally as well as for your tenants?
Well, it's been enormous. Because we have public funds, we spend a tremendous amount of time and resources committed to disaster relief programs within KBS, really beginning in 2018, 2019. And so when we got to the position of really closing our office to all but a handful of us who came in every day in March of last year, we had the hardware, the software for our employees, and we didn't miss a day, and our employees were dedicated to that. With our tenants, it was more challenging because not all of them had the resources. Not all of them were able to send their employees out prepared to work from home. And so, but we tried to facilitate that. We tried to manage our buildings. People were in and out of the building during the first 60 days of the pandemic. So to keep those people safe, to keep our building safe was our priority. And so it was a very, very intense time. Technology played an enormous part of that. 2 years ago, who would have thought of Zoom? It might have been a car ad. And to realize that everybody in the business community has relied on just that one resource, how important that is, let alone the numerous other technological changes and opportunities that we've really seen over the last year.
Definitely. Well, it sounds like you all had an incredible foundation, which helped out a ton, I'm sure. And, kind of related to that, moving forward, something that's very top of mind for all of us right now, whether it's owners, operators, or even our tenants, is the return to the workplace. And how has technology impacted the way that companies are viewing this return?
Well, what technology has provided our tenants and their employees just flexibility. Every company is different. Every company has a different culture. And is managing their relationships and the activities with their employees. What we've seen really over the last 6 months is a phenomenon which we call FOMO, which is really that the employees have a fear of missing out. Some employees in some firms are coming into the office where they may have 50% of the employees are working in the office every day. And then the employees who are working from home after a week or 2 weeks realize that there's a new project that the company's raised, and they're not involved in the meetings and they don't know about it. And so there's a real demand now to really accommodate those tenants, whether it's modifying the space, whether it's expanding the work from home schedules. But it's a challenge for every one of our tenants. There isn't really a consistent model that we're seeing yet, but we're really seeing it gravitate over to companies arranging facilities for all of their employees to be working in their office, in a specific office throughout the week.
Yeah, that FOMO is real. I can testify myself. I miss my team dearly. And something that a lot of folks that I've heard are doing, whether it's landlords or tenants, are using technology to plan out and reconfigure their space. Are you all doing any of that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have some. Again, I emphasize the modification and the real inconsistency with our tenants. and it's changes, culturally depending on the locations. Some areas, because of the availability of vaccine, there are some communities have a great comfort level of entering their workplace without even wearing masks. Where then in some communities, people are walking down the street by themselves with masks on, and so the employees are really sensitive to that culture, as we are. There are different health and safety protocols in place, and again, this is changing on a monthly basis. But there's a sense of urgency because now businesses are attempting to reorganize their space and coming back into the buildings. A few months ago, let's say in January of this year, we had occupancy anywhere from 10 to possibly 25% of the employees were coming into our buildings. And now that ranges from the low end of maybe 15% up to 50, 60% of the employees in buildings.
Wow. That's a huge change. That's motivating to hear as well. That's really cool. And big picture, for the office scene over the past year, what trends have you been seeing? I know, things like rent collection have been hot topics. What are you all seeing there?
Well, to go back a year and a half ago, when this pandemic first was exposed to our country, I was actually anticipating, and we developed business plans, assuming we would have 80 to 85% of our rents paid currently. And we're paying dividends, monthly dividends or quarterly distribution to our investors. And that's a priority. There are people who rely on those dividends greatly. And so to modify our business plan to be assured that we're able to keep those distributions on a consistent basis became a real challenge. And so again, our model, my model was that we were going to receive 80, 85% of the rent, where in fact, just because we have, substantial quality tenants, our collection range on a month-to-month basis and on a low of 95% to 99% of the rent was collected. So it was a very, very pleasant surprise. But understand our average tenant is close to a half a floor. Mm-hmm. So it's a 10,000 square foot tenant. So we have, substantial tenants. And for the most part, nearly all of our tenants really survived over the last year. We had very, very few business failures. And so the creativity of the entrepreneur is something that I really respect. So as we go through, it's just the roster of creditworthy tenants that across our portfolio and the variety of types of tenants that we have were just very, very helpful. The one benefit, because I'm an optimist, so I look for the areas of positive that comes out of this, is I think in the future we're going to have better run buildings. I think that there's more creativity in technology. I think we're going to have buildings that are going to be more environmentally sensitive, but efficient technology, rather than just come up with a system that it may be environmental positive at the expense of the tenants, right? Or maybe even expense of the investors. It's going to be a benefit to the investors. It's going to be a benefit to the buildings. And I think not only are investors going to gravitate to those type of buildings that we'll be able to improve, but also tenants are going to appreciate being involved in utilizing those facilities for their home. Yeah,
definitely. This movement towards sustainability, greener, more cost-effective buildings, I think is something that's really finally taking off, and we're making some great strides there. And Chuck, KBS has an incredible national portfolio. So we're lucky to be in the presence of someone who has insights into so many different markets around the country. From a market level, which markets have held their strength?
Well, the large coastal markets such as San Francisco, Los Angeles, Chicago, New York, have been greatly damaged by the pandemic. And those are the markets that we see the greater percentage of space available for sublease. And actually, those are the markets where consistently, even today, there's a small percentage of employees that are returning to their offices. But I think that we're seeing and we're experiencing with the vaccine, people are becoming more confident and have a lower level of fright from the COVID virus. I think that hopefully we're going to see people becoming comfortable with mass transit in San Francisco, in New York, in Chicago. I mean, that's really an important component for companies that are there. So I'm confident that those markets are going to recover, but I think it's going to be a long haul for those to recover and really be stabilized and be a prime location for tenants, for major users to occupy their space and be successful occupying the space. But what we're seeing in secondary markets such as Phoenix, Austin, Dallas, Raleigh, North Carolina, parts of South Florida. I mean, we've seen over the last 3, 4, 5 months, a substantial increase in leasing activity, commitments for longer term leases, even expansion in buildings. Tenants have completed their long-term plans, incorporating space for their employees to come back, where really during the past year, the majority of our leases were only 1 or 2 year leases, and tenants were not modifying their footprint. Wow. They weren't using CapEx, other than maybe some just deferral or really minor improvements in their space from just wear and tear. But now we're seeing longer term leases. We're seeing tenants in those secondary markets committing their space, finishing their business plan. Most of them are incorporating flexibility. A lot of them are still taking some of their space and making open offices so people can rotate and come in 1 or 2 to 3 days a week. But we're fortunate. We have properties in 25 different markets around the country, and so some markets are improving more rapid than others. But we're clearly seeing in some of these secondary markets, because of the culture of the community, and really the posture, the comfort level employees have, regrouping, coming back into the market. We're seeing a real impact for leasing activity and employees of tenants returning to the offices.
Great. Yeah, it's definitely been fascinating from the outside to watch. Fortunately, I don't have to worry as much about the implications, but glad to hear that your diverse portfolio has helped out with that and provided you with some really interesting insights. And in terms of tech trends, we've seen so much really kind of take off this year. We've fortunately one of the great things about all of this is we've been so innovative and we've found so many intricacies to kind of change what we're doing. What do you find particularly revolutionary and interesting, and what do you think is here to stay?
Well, I think the concept of hoteling is going to be something that employees are going to be sensitive about. They may not embrace it, but for example, we have a building. We have a 400,000 square foot building, and a tenant is committing the top floor of that building just for hoteling, just for their employees. And it makes a difference, what that industry is, what their talents are, because we also have employee tenants that really their operations don't accommodate that, don't allow that, it's not beneficial, and maybe even their employees don't want that. I hear even within our organization. There are people that even they plan on coming in, 1 or 2 or 3 days a week. And we've always had people within our company who travel consistently. And so they have other offices, whether they're working out of their home or more importantly, they're working from a satellite office. We see that when people come back to the main office, they want their office. They want a picture of their family on the desk. They want their files available. They want, they're not just using their iPad. They want their space. And so we're seeing that a number of tenants are really accommodating employees and maybe providing some hoteling. I think Zoom is here to stay. I think it's a great tool. KBS invested a tremendous amount of capital in a number of our buildings. We have roughly 24 million square feet of space around the United States. And most of our buildings are substantial mid-rise buildings where there are 6 stories to 20-story buildings. And what we committed in space in a number of those buildings was conference room, because we could have a tenant who needs 5 or 6 or 7,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet, but they may require a conference area for a meeting with a board of directors or a dozen or 20 people once a month, a formal meeting. And so what we did is we created space, we built space within our buildings for conference facilities. And we have these buildings all over the country. And so we could have a tenant in Chicago, but if they want to have a meeting in Washington, D.C., they can use a conference room in Washington, D.C. at a minimal cost, just for setup. We don't rent it to them, just to set it up and accommodate that. So we've committed substantial dollars and energies for that. I think the Zoom program and the software even broadens that, because I think what we're going to have in our buildings, and I think a number of tenants will create facilities and hardware and software within their office space to accommodate that. For example, we have a board of directors room here in Newport Beach, which is a substantial room that can hold 30, 35 people. And over a year ago, we went ahead and put in the hardware and software to create a Zoom meeting where you can see and you can hear 30 different people participate in a meeting, and we can connect that to 20, 30 other locations, and be able to identify and see those people and have an organized meeting, right? Where we used to be on conference calls where I believe if you had a conference call where you had more than 5 people, you need to mute half of the people because you couldn't even understand who's talking. So I think this tool is wonderful. I think that this is great. Although I hear a number of people who are tired of Zoom. They want to be face to face, and whenever they have an opportunity to meet face to face, they take advantage of that. But I think it's a wonderful tool, and I think that we really see the benefit that we can have a meeting, or somebody can have a meeting, at their headquarters in Los Angeles, and they can contact their Dallas and their Atlanta office, and they can have a weekly meeting, face-to-face meeting, and I think it improves accountability and really improves communication.
Yeah, I agree. I of course am a face-to-face, in-person kind of guy, but the ability to be from Chicago to LA to DC, Miami all in a day is just amazing, and it's normal now. It's really cool to see.
Well, it's really had to change, because I mean, even where traditionally we would have conference calls with 2 or 3 people, there are companies who automatically set up a Zoom call. Mm-hmm. Automatically, they don't want to do a conference call, and just for that, just to be able to look at somebody on the screen and especially interact with a half dozen different people and have an orderly discussion.
Yeah, it's been very cool to see that while we're separated a little bit physically, in some ways we're almost more connected. So that's one thing to hold on to. Well, Chuck, we're super grateful for you joining us today. So glad you can make it. We're, of course, going to keep up to date with all the trends, and we'll be seeing you soon. But thanks again, Chuck.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and we will stay in touch, because our business is changing, if not a monthly basis, a weekly basis. So there are great trends happening, and we're excited about the future of our portfolio.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Some great exciting things to continue talking about. Well, thanks again, Chuck, and thank you everyone for attending this session. Make sure to network, take your meetings, check out our booths. But we'll see you at your next session. Thank you, everyone, and thanks again, Chuck. Bye.
Wow, Chuck, thank you. That was an amazing way to start off RETCON.